Sound speeds, and I'm not going to waste any time here because the information from this video came directly from a Skype call I had with an up-and-coming game streamer by the name of Rothenium. So without further delay, here is the importance of sound in streaming. Okay, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you, Alan.
Awesome. It's great to finally get you face to face, man. You're so difficult to track down out there because it seems like every single time I ever see you online, it's streaming.
I know, man. I know. I'm always streaming. I'm always streaming. Like every chance I get to stream, I'm streaming.
You are probably the most dedicated person I could recall ever seeing a streaming online.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate that. And you're not that easy to contact either, man. You seem to always be on set when I try to call you.
Oh, man. Film industry, work schedules. You got to love them.
Yeah, exactly, man. Exactly.
So let me ask you, how did you end up finding me and finding my sound channel?
Well, I was actually doing research to make my sound better on my channel and actually found your channel in a microphone positioning video because, well, you know that a lot of people like to put the microphone in front of their faces, and that's exactly how I found your video. Like, how could I position my microphone so I will not lose quality, but I can still get the high fidelity sound that I want to have for my streams? And I found your channel this way with that video.
Yeah, it can be a challenge. There's not a lot of information out there, I guess, for Twitch streamers about sound. Is that correct?
Yes, that's definitely correct. There's not a lot of information and there's a lot of misinformation. And if you want to really get into it, you have to get very technical, and that will dissuade a lot of people into going into it. Most people that I know, they want to have an easy solution to sound, and so they'll end up trying to get like just a plug and play solution, like a USB microphone.
Yeah, those are common.
I think that's one of the most common things I see in streams.
I'm not a huge fan of those USB mics personally, and I understand the purpose. You know, you plug it in, it works, it's an audio interface, it's a microphone, it does everything for you. For someone who's doing YouTube, works great. For a Twitch streamer, works great for a lot of people. But that's because there's a lot of sound from your games that's washing out a lot of the stuff that you would really care about if you were doing any kind of high fidelity.
Exactly, but that same point, like, yeah, it can hide bad things from your sound, but it can also crush it.
Yes.
Like if you're dealing with two audio sources and you're dealing with like a video game source will have very high dynamic range. Oh, maybe you want to explain dynamic range for people that don't understand it, Alan?
Sure. It's basically just the volume level. It's like the loudness and the quietness of your sound is basically the dynamic range, how loud or how quiet something is. And when you're talking about squashing it down, you're talking about compressing it, bringing down the louds, bringing up the lows, and that brings up your background noise, though.
Exactly, Alan. Thanks. So a big problem with video games is that you have really quiet parts, and then you have parts where you're actually firing a gun, and it's going all the way up. Like the volume is going from very low to very high. And I see a lot of streamers struggling because their actual microphone output, it'll be too high or it'll be too low at points, and they don't have any type of dynamic compression. So there'll be a lot of times where their sound, you won't be able to understand what they're saying, and this is a big problem.
Yeah, especially if you play something like Five Nights at Freddy's where it wants you to crank it up so you could hear some little bitty tiny sound way deep in the background, and then all of a sudden something jumps out at you and jump scares you and it blows your meters and your eardrums at the same time.
Exactly. So I know that a lot of people don't get into dynamic compression, but do USB microphones have any type of dynamic compression? I'm curious.
You can set it to automatically adjust your level on the fly. And you can do dynamic compression through some sort of components, but then those always drag down your system. That uses system resources, which as a Twitch streamer, I'm sure you need every bit of that to go towards rendering on the fly, outputting, you know, your stream to the internet, that kind of thing. So people are just thinking one-stop shop, get a USB microphone and be done with sound.
And I see a lot of people with USB microphones, so their sound is okay, but it constantly gets crushed by the video game sound. So what I see a lot is that people are raising the volume to the point where they're actually getting clipping constantly in their voice input.
And you know what? It's one of those balances. How do you end up doing it? Because if you, I mean, you have to talk over the loud parts and you have to, you know, not kill people when there's a quiet part. And video games don't make it easy. There's not a dynamic range control that you could set up on your video games. If you get your sound right, your volume level really doesn't need to be up extremely loud up and over your loudest parts, because you're more interactive with those parts. And if it's loud, you're going to be more energetic anyway. So a lot of the times people will bring up their audio levels when it is a quieter time, and then they blow their meters out when it's a loud part because you're yelling and all excited and whatever else. But you don't do that on your channel. You seem to have a better understanding of how to set your levels. You don't really get all crazy and scream and whatever else. You're always cool.
I try to be, but yeah, at some points, like I was playing Resident Evil the other day, and they got me, man. They got me once, and I did scream.
I still need to watch that.
But I was kind of covered because I'm actually using a multiprocessor right now.
Ah, very good.
And since I have this dynamic compression also set on it, I can have like this constant output of my voice, loud and clear, for my viewers, without having to go for the volume every once in a while. And this is what I'd like to recommend to a lot of streamers, but I think that it can be a little bit overwhelming.
Don't be afraid of buying used gear. That's another thing, is people always feel like you gotta buy new stuff in order to make it work. A lot of old school gear works fantastic. I mean, you know how you always hear there's no school like the old school.
We don't think of a lot, but like technology in general, like video technology, it keeps changing every day. And we went from standard, we went to HD, then we went to 2K and 4K and 8K. But with sound, I mean, if you think of it, sound kind of peaked. I don't know what your opinion on this is, but it seems to be a technology that got to an extremely high point early on in comparison to video, for example, which keeps changing. It seems like you look at video stuff from 10, 15 years ago, and it's like leagues behind what we're at now.
I think back then, the best quality that was in consumer world was Hi8 and SVHS back then. Now you're dealing with 4K on your cell phone.
Go back to I don't know, Nelson Pass amp that came out 50 years ago, and listen to that playing some music on some speakers, and I mean, it's still going to be hard to beat.
And you want to talk about something that's hard to beat. There are options right now you can actually get equipment-wise that are a one-stop shop that's a great place for an entry-level person, but at the same time, it's going to grow with you.
Like I see most streamers, they go for Blue Yetis or Blue Snowballs.
All right, first of all, a Blue Snowball is, let's not even talk about that in comparison to a Yeti because the sound quality is not as good. So let's just talk about the Blue Yeti. About what, $125, $130, something like that? You can sometimes find it online for around $100, sometimes less.
I believe so.
Blue is a company that makes a lot of large diaphragm condensers. They make a lot of different microphones that people buy. So they put a lot of that kind of same tech into their USB microphones. So the USB aspect of the Blue Yeti is usually popular because it is a one-stop shop with a USB interface that goes into your computer. Plus, because it is a cardioid, it's a binaural, it's an omnidirectional, it has multi-different patterns on there. It has a lot of features, let's say. And because it's Blue specializes in large diaphragms, they make a pretty good quality capsule for that Blue Yeti. The biggest problem that you run into is there's no suspension. You hear every single sound that is clicked and typed on the keyboard because, again, it's a condenser. It's designed to pick up all the sounds around you. So if you're inside of a small room and you're up against a wall or something and you're typing on your keyboard, it's reflecting all those sounds back and you're picking those up in your microphone. And what's also even worse is people that don't even bother getting themselves a boom arm for the Blue Yeti and they sit it on their table. Every single sound that you make banging your keyboard or your mouse is going to be picked up by that thing. It's going to make your sound terrible. So you get yourself one of those $15 or $20 boom arms and then you put it in front of your face. Then all you have is, let me demonstrate this. Your microphone just gets blown out all the time because you're constantly talking into it like that. You need to get yourself then a shock mount, but then you run into the circumstance that you had before, the same issue you had before, which is where your face is being obscured. So the idea behind a Blue Yeti is great in concept, but it is a huge mic, and if you either put it in front of you in the right place, it is very simple to imagine it becoming overwhelming and taking over your frame. There's some Twitch streamers I've seen do this, and it's almost like the microphone is more featured than them themselves. And as a Twitch streamer, people can play video games anywhere. They can buy a game from a store. They can download it, do DLC, whatever they want to do on their own. But the reason why people go to your channel is because of you. It's your personality. It's what you bring to it. Maybe you're really, really good at gaming. Maybe you give people a little bit of hope because you answer questions while you're doing it and you go out there and say, oh, let me actually show you where that is, and maybe show you something live on your stream.
I agree. The most important part of any stream is is the personality of the streamer and the interaction with the audience. And I mean, the most important aspect of interacting with the audience through this medium is sound. If you're talking about streaming is also, if you think about it, it is sort of like a radio show. Like, streaming could work without, like, a lot of streamers don't show their faces.
Yeah.
They just have the gameplay and they're talking. That goes to show the importance of sound, because that's what makes the stream, because you have the person there, you're interacting with the person and with the person's voice.
Yeah. And in all honesty, you don't need to necessarily have yourself be seen, but a lot of people like that interaction, so that way there's a face with. I think that the part of the reason why a lot of people are very much into that is because it makes you feel like you have a bigger connection with you. If you see the person that's speaking to you versus just hearing them, and this could be a voice anywhere, you're actually seeing the person you're talking to.
Yes.
One of the things, let me tell you about one of the things I really like about your stream. You are extremely interactive. Your audience even knows the fact that if they write a comment, there's about a 99% chance you're going to see their comment and you'll directly engage them on that comment. You'll say something, you'll respond to them, you'll interact with them. Your audience goes completely crazy when you play a game and you say, well, I'm going to now try. I saw when you first tried Fortnite, and your audience went completely crazy. Here, add me. I want to be in your group. I want to be in your group. I want to be in your group. You spent probably the better part of an hour just getting all the friend requests and stuff set up so that people could play with you.
Yeah.
They all loved it with you. But I thought it was just awesome that your audience was like, I want to just clear the way for him, and I'll die in order to keep him alive, so that way he continues to go and dominate. And I thought that was just awesome.
That was a lot of fun. I love playing with my audience. I did that also with Smash Brothers. It was a blast, man. Thanks, man. I appreciate you saying that. And yes, exactly. That's why I believe that sound is the most important part of streaming. And I know that it might be like a bit counterintuitive, because you're like, oh, but you're streaming the game. But yes, you're streaming the game, but who's streaming the game? Like, if it was only the gameplay, 90% of the people that are there would not be there.
Yeah, or they want to play themselves.
Exactly. You're hanging out with that streamer. You're spending time with the person that's playing the game. And to spend time and to be able to enjoy that, you have to be able to hear the person clearly and with decent quality.
It's a commitment you make back to your audience. It's one where they're agreeing to give you their time to watch you and your stream. In response, you agree to give them a professional experience. People know what it's like to see people on TV. They know what good sound sounds like. So you got to deliver, because if you don't, they'll go to the next streamer.
I agree. If you had to explain it in a simple way, like what hardware you need.
So there was a lot of good information in there, and if you're a streamer, I strongly recommend you watching part 2 right there, because in that video I go over some gear recommendations, and it starts around the $50 price point, so you don't want to miss that. Thanks for tuning into this episode of Sound Speeds, and be sure to tune in the next one for more information and sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered, or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.